Are you leading them in?
Yeah, I'm letting them in now. Okay. Bismillah. Okay, I think it started. Okay. Okay, Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome. I guess we'll start in, I don't know, a couple of minutes, maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes, inshallah. My name is Umar, and this is, I guess, the beginning of our online, I guess, halakas, as per ICMG Youth Mental Health Initiative. But we will be starting in about, I don't know, a few minutes, inshallah. So if you're going to get a cup of tea, get it now, because there's a few things to go over, inshallah. Yes, you're more than welcome to mute yourself and close your camera, whatever. You just listen, kick back, relax, get your cup of tea, and inshallah, and inshallah, we can go over some quite, I guess, to a certain degree, some deep topics, inshallah. But I'm going to try my best to make it as, I guess, comprehensible as I possibly can, and not bore people with some of the topics. I hope everyone can hear me well, inshallah. Everything's well, and I'm clear, and I look good.
Sí, señor.
Thank you. So alhamdulillah. Okay. So if anything does cut out at any point, or anything, just let me know. But inshallah, I think everything is running smooth. We'll start in a couple of minutes, inshallah. I guess yeah. So we'll be talking about you essentially. We'll be talking about you and yourself, me, myself, and I. So this won't be I guess, a general talk. This will be more about giving you the opportunity to sort of, I guess, dive into who you are. And I think that's super amazing. I don't know. It's something that really interests me. But we will start in a few minutes. Just 1 sec. I'm gonna get a cup of tea as well. Yeah, just 1 second. Okay. I am back. Inshallah, everyone has got their cup of tea. I went inside to get my cup of tea, and my sister was like, "Don't accidentally turn yourself into a potato." Luckily, I don't know how to, so hopefully that doesn't accidentally happen. But we will dive into it slowly, inshallah. Okay. So, I mean, I guess people would have seen the title. It's understanding yourself to understand your well-being. I don't want to make this too long. Inshallah, it would be maybe, or depending on how it goes, I don't know. Sometimes I can just blabber on. But hopefully, it'll be like half an hour, 40 minutes, just like that sort of peak time, so that we can actually just take in a few key points and then, inshallah, move on with our lives. I don't want to sit you down for 2 hours because, I mean, as exciting as I think the topic is, I don't think it's very smart to just drain it, if that makes sense. But yeah, the title is Understand Yourself to Understand Your Well-Being. And it's a bit of a random title that I came up with, but I think I picked it deliberately. I put the word "your" in it twice because I really want to make this about you, rather than just, I guess, talking about general well-being tips, if that makes sense. So because it's so easy for me to turn around and say, oh, oh, here are 10 well-being tips or activities that you can do to improve your life. Well, I mean, anyone can just Google it. I mean, we don't need to organize a meeting like this, or a chat like this to learn about general tips. But when it comes to really diving into learning about yourself, inshallah, we can go over a few very interesting topics, inshallah, like, or interesting, I guess, I guess pointers to start really looking within yourself, and understanding what direction to take when you're trying to sort of learn about yourself, if that makes sense. I don't know if I said this, but my name is Omar. I'm a well-being counselor. I have a bit of an interest for mental health and, I guess, development and a growth, and, I guess, if you will, healing. I don't know, all those interesting terms. But yeah, so I guess just to dive straight into it, the way I look at things is just like counseling. When somebody comes my way, when I'm counseling somebody, I'm making sure that I look at that person's context. I'm looking at that person's environment, their internals, their externals, and everybody's journey is so unique. It's literally so unique too, and that's why it's so important to put an emphasis on what it is that you're going through, and not to just give general advice, because I don't think that really helps. There's the beautiful thing about, I guess, a teacher and a student. If we're talking about that, a teacher will specifically teach a student in a specific way, and that applies to everything. With your children, you teach your children in a specific way depending on their personality, or your interactions with your friends are a specific way because you know that a person's tendencies and those sorts of things. And just with your own well-being, your journey is unique, and you need to acknowledge that. So yeah, rather than saying, like I said, rather than saying, okay, here, control your thoughts. Here, which is, don't get me wrong, these are amazing things. But rather than looking at externals, we're going to be trying and looking at internals today, inshallah, to focus on you as an individual. And it does two things. If we're able to start looking inwards rather than outwards, which is not wrong, but we're looking at the inward aspect today. One, it allows you to grow as an individual. You learn a thing or two about yourself. I mean, even though you might have a pretty decent understanding about yourself, but the once you start learning things about yourself, you start to really develop as an individual, and we can dive into that, inshallah. But it also, I guess, allows you to improve areas of your life, and which is the point of this topic, that are influencing your well-being, that are influencing areas of your life, whether they're emotional, mental, spiritual, etc. They're influencing you in some way, whether positive or negative. And you need to look inward to be able to sort of, I guess, gauge what's going on, if that makes sense. Now, this is the first time I'm actually giving a talk like this, so it's really hard when I'm looking at myself, or looking into the camera, and I'm not able to sort of get anyone's reaction. So I'm just hoping that, if I did crack a joke or something, people are laughing. I don't know. But it's different. I don't know. I'm getting used to it, inshallah. Okay, so we touched on the internal and external, the inward and the outward. Yeah, what is the external? So I guess the external is, I guess, things that you can observe. So, like, okay, well, how is my sleeping pattern? Or, what's the state of my finances in? Or, how am I doing enough activities, or sort of spiritual activity? And look, it's external things that you can observe, if that makes sense. And internal is looking at what it is when you're looking at yourself. So, Omar, I'm looking at myself. I'm figuring out what my mind, my body, my heart needs, or even wants. So it's the internal, if that makes sense. So we're literally blocking everything out and just not cutting people off, like just blocking the external out for a moment and looking inwards to sort of learn about yourself. And it's so powerful, but it almost sounds like we're talking about mindfulness here. Mindfulness is like just calming down, being aware of your surroundings, just being present in the moment. They usually, I guess, attune it to meditation and that sort of thing. But what I'm trying to promote here is actually heartfulness, which is something a little bit different, maybe a term that not a lot of people have actually heard about. But my understanding of it, at least, is it's understanding and being in sync with what your heart needs, and what it's, I guess, inclined towards? What is inclined towards the most? And in all honesty, I guess the way I look at it, so we're talking about heartfulness, yeah, and we're talking about what it is that your heart wants. In all honesty, if I stopped this talk right now and just said to you all, the concept of heartfulness, the concept that your heart is constantly speaking with you, and it's constantly it has its own inclinations and it's directing you in a certain direction. I kid you not, today's talk would be enough. Like, you could literally go away and take that concept and actually just reflect on that and be like, okay, what is it that my heart is telling me? And that would be enough for today. But there's a lot more that I need to explain. But subhanallah, it's a very, very powerful concept. It's like this. Let me explain it in another way. You know how people say, I have a gut feeling. Yeah. Why did you do that? I just had a gut feeling. Where is that gut feeling coming? What is that? What is that gut feeling? It's your intuition. And your intuition, what's your intuition? It's the inclination that you have towards something. Where does that inclination come from? It comes from your heart. It's not empty. It's not something random. It's actually, if you will, to a certain degree, if you will, it's almost divine inspiration to a certain degree. And I'll get to that in a moment. Why is that? Why is it divine inspiration? We're no prophets, obviously. But yeah, so essentially the point of this is we're trying to achieve the knowledge of the self. And in all honesty, if I was to just talk about the knowledge of the self in itself and not link this to well-being, we would probably need like a 3-hour workshop or a course or something. Like, it's so detailed, subhanallah. But this path of I guess knowledge of you, I guess improving the knowledge of yourself, it will change your life. And I believe this wholeheartedly. It will change your personal life. It will change your relationship with your partner. It will change your relationship with your family, change your relationship with your community. It will change the way you approach things. It will change, I guess, it just change every aspect of your life. It's just such a powerful, powerful science in itself, knowledge of yourself. It's mind-blowing. And I guess rather than diving into the deeper aspects of the knowledge of the self, just very, very basically put, you start learning about, or at a much greater level, your strengths, your weaknesses, your own identity. And just to dive into that deeper section just a little bit, it's almost like it's that path that sort of takes you towards knocking on that door within your heart that allows you to experience a sweetness of Iman, experience a different connection with Allah. Like, the knowledge of the self is just super powerful, subhanallah. And there's just so much to say about it. But obviously, what we're going to try to do is not talk about knowledge of the self. We're trying to talk about, I guess it is to a certain degree, but evaluating us as an individual and linking it to our well-being, inshallah. Okay. I hope you're all with me so far. Everything's okay. You can take a deep breath. Let's take a sip of our tea. Relax. Okay. I know I spoke for like 10 minutes straight there. I'd like to give people an opportunity to just kick back, relax, and enjoy your time. And in all honesty, you're probably in your PJs now, which is great. And if you see what I'm wearing a shalwar. If anyone knows what that is. You're at home. Got to be comfortable. Okay. So moving on, inshallah. So we spoke about the internal, as in, what it is that my heart, my body, my mind, my body, my heart wants. But if I was to say to you, okay, Omad, I'm talking to myself. Okay, Omad, I need you to start looking within yourself and learning about yourself and learning how that is affecting your well-being. If I didn't know anything about this topic, in all honesty, I'd just be like, yeah, where do I start? What do I do? Like, what direction am I meant to take? And it can be, you just don't know what to do. Like, okay, well, I want to learn about myself. I just don't know what to do. Well, let's look at what your internals are, if that makes sense, or what does your inwardly, what does your heart or your soul, what does it consist of? And first and foremost, it consists of your fitra. It consists of your innate nature, if you will. And if you don't know what fitra is, it's like you as a human being, the blank slate of you as a human. Like Allah has created all the humans, and He's placed, I guess, or infused inclinations into that blank human. Before you had your name, before I was Omar and I look like this, just a blank. Imagine you just had a blank human canvas. Allah infuses certain characteristics, inclinations into every single human being. And I guess another way to explain it is like, let's say somebody is, or let's say everybody is inclined naturally towards doing something good, and everybody is inclined towards not wanting to do something bad. Now, obviously, it's different for some people love to do good, and some people, some people love to do bad. But naturally speaking, there is an inclination towards not wanting to go that way, and there's an inclination towards wanting to go towards the good. Where does that come from? What if you don't have a religion and you're atheist and you have no guidelines to follow? Where does the wanting to do good, wanting to stay away from bad come from? It comes from within you. So that's the first thing that we have to understand here, is that we have our fitra, and we have to understand what it is that our fitra has, so we get a better understanding of who we are as an individual, if that makes sense. And then within your own fitra, you have your own personality. This is where things get a little bit interesting, actually. So, like I said before, this is not me saying, okay, well, here's 10 well-being tips that you can use. This is this is where we can actually start diving into who it is that you are. Because yes, we have our fitra. Everyone has I guess, what Allah has infused into us as a human being. But then you as an individual have personality traits. And we can see personality traits in a baby at such a young age, like literally 1-2 months old. You start noticing different traits in a baby. Within your fitra, you have your own personality as well that Allah has blessed you with. And this is the amazing thing. This is where you can start identifying, like looking within yourself, looking at your own personality, and identifying what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are, those sorts of things. And I guess not to dive too much into that, but if you were to identify, let's say, for example, you were to identify a strength that you have, you identify a capability that you have as an individual, you take that capability that Allah has blessed you with. Everyone's got different capabilities. Everyone's got different strengths and weaknesses. You take that one capability that Allah has blessed you with, you can develop that 150 times fold. So let's say, for example, I don't know, let's just say you're naturally inclined towards business. I'm not. The chances of me succeeding in business are much less than you, because you've just got the mind, your mind grasps it so much better. So you've identified that that's your strength, and then you can make that grow tenfold. If I was to try and work the lines of business, I'd be much slower at developing myself, because you're just naturally inclined towards it. Does that make sense? It's one simple example, inshallah. So we've talked about your natural inclinations. You might also have certain worries or concerns that other people don't have. So we're looking at ourselves again, yeah. We're looking at my personality. So I've got my strengths, I've got my weaknesses, but maybe I'm somebody that worries a lot. Maybe I stress out a lot. Maybe I've got weaknesses that other people don't have. Maybe I've got strengths that other people don't have. So you look at yourself as your personality in all different aspects, if that makes sense. Okay, deep breath, take a sip. Okay, so that's when I say internal, when I say look at yourself, what are we talking about? We're talking about our fitra, our innate nature, and then we're talking about my personality, and then within that realm is your inclinations and everything about your own personality. So that's the internal. There's also I guess, as you grow, as you develop, as you change, your internals change with that as well. Your I guess your tendencies, your strengths, your weaknesses, like as you start to develop yourself as well, like there's so many things that are at play, but we're just looking at the two basic ones, or the two main ones more so, your fitra and your personality. And then we can break this down. How do we link this with your well-being? How am I supposed to link this with my well-being? Generally speaking, we look at it in 4 different ways. thinking about it, I probably should have done a PowerPoint presentation. I think that would have been a lot better. Anyways, just speaking out loud here. How do we break this down? How is it that my fitra and my personality and the things that I am experiencing, how is it that that is affecting my emotional well-being? How is it that that is affecting I'm talking about me, my physical well-being, my spiritual well-being, and my mental well-being? And the reason why I'm constantly saying me is because, in all honesty, we're living in a time where we really are struggling with our own identity, whether that is from a cultural perspective, from a religious perspective. We really are struggling with, or just your own personality. We really are struggling with who we are as individuals. And that is okay based on, I guess, what you're influenced by. I mean, your development as a child, as a youth, as a teen, the social media, the things that the experiences that you've had, like just so many things are at play that can influence the way we think, our identity, and those sorts of things. But we really are, I guess, at a crisis nowadays with who we are, with who am I, and the fact that we have this identity crisis is something that we struggle with in many different areas of our life. So I guess as a general, the umbrella of this talk is, let's bring it towards ourselves. Let's show ourselves some, I guess, some care, inshallah, just generally speaking. So we've spoken about the fitra. We've spoken about, I guess, your personality. We've spoken about the branches of your well-being that you can sort of dive into. So like I said, your emotional well-being, your physical, your spiritual, your mental well-being. These are questions and we're going to get to some questions that you can ask yourself. These are areas that you dive into yourself, if that makes sense. So it's constant self-assessment. I mean, if you go to a counselor and you're engaging in therapy, you're going through an assessment. The counselor is trying their best to find out what your context is through assessing your experiences, you're assessing your needs, and they try to find out what it is best for you. And that's what we're doing within ourselves. I'm constantly looking within myself to see what is it that I need. And through those understanding, inshallah, we're able to take strides forward in our lives. Okay, so we spoke about those things. How do we learn about the internal? How do we take wisdom out of our what we're going through, or what I have within me? So how am I supposed to actually engage? What am I supposed to do to learn and start really diving into what my heart is telling me? The first thing is to engage in lots of reflection, lots of tafakkur, lots of deep reflection, pondering, contemplation. And this can be really hard for a lot of people. You know, like the reason why I put this as number one, because okay, well, something bad's come my way. I'm just going to reflect on it and, you know, gather some, I don't know, gain some wisdom out of it. It's not that easy, in all honesty. Reflection is an art form. Reflection is a skill that you train, because it's using up so much brain power, so much capacity, if you will, and you're putting a toll on yourself. Because let's say, for example, you experience some form of pain, talking about it from a mental health perspective, you're not going to want to reflect on those pains because you're going to be experiencing that pain. So reflex is, let me just push it aside. That's one aspect. Another aspect is, I guess, when you're talking about, let's say, for example, you're having an existential crisis, you're trying to figure out what your purpose in life is. Are you going to allow yourself to reflect about what your purpose is? Why am I here? Imam Ghazali talks about this. What am I doing in this world? What am I doing as an individual? Omar, what am I doing here? What is my specific purpose here? And let's say, for example, you understand your purpose is to, you know, worship Allah. But what is my actual purpose in this world? If you don't allow yourself to reflect, if you don't give yourself permission to reflect on these things, then you're just going to push it aside. And that's going to cause a different, I guess, ball of pain within you. So deep reflection is, in all honesty, this is the second thing. If you were to able to go away with the fact that you need to reflect more, subhan, I swear that would be enough, because it is such a powerful tool. And what we're going to do later on, inshallah, is just look at some questions that we can ask ourselves to dive into reflection. And some of the questions are a little bit deep, some of them are a little bit wacky, but it's just one of them, maybe one of them will relate to you. and you can start diving into it and saying, okay, well, allowing yourself to sort of dive deeper into certain topics within yourself, within who you are as an individual, if that makes sense. So inshallah, the first thing is we engage in lots of reflection. The second thing is, how do we learn about our internal? How do I learn more about myself? We learn from trying things. You try things. You try, you try reading different topics. You try, I mean, nowadays, I mean, if you go to uni, you're probably in your second degree because you're trying something. You're not sure what you want to do, or you're working and you have a crisis and you want to do a different job, or like you have hobbies, you jump from hobby to hobby, or you have different groups of friends. Like you just try things. Like trying things allows you to learn more about yourself as well as an individual, and also what your needs are, also what your strengths and weaknesses are. So trying things, there's nothing wrong with trying things. Sometimes the fear of trying something is debilitating, because we're worried, oh, if I don't want to try something, I don't want to fail at it, I don't want to, engage in this new hobby, I probably won't stick out with it too long. Yeah, but trying things means more experiences in different things and more learning about yourself and more learning about the world. So it's a beautiful thing to try things. There's nothing wrong with it, honestly. The last thing is, or the third thing that I've noted down at least, is our own experiences. So how is this different from trying things? I'm talking about experiences that come our way. Some of these might be painful experiences. Let's say we're talking about a financial hardship, or, losing a loved one, or just, your heartbreak, you're breaking up with somebody. Our experiences, as painful as they are, can teach us something about ourselves. But let's just be honest here. Yeah, let's actually, firstly, talking about our experiences, just to let me just infuse my own mental health sort of thing into this. We have to be honest about, when we're talking about our experiences, we have good experiences that happen, we have moderate normal experiences that happen, but when we're talking about our painful experiences, we have to admit to ourselves that some of these experiences are really painful and they hurt, and they're going to take some time to heal through. And this is the reality. So if you were to, let's say, go through a heartbreak or lose a loved one, I can't just expect you to turn around and say, well, reflect on this and learn what the wisdom is. No, you have a pain to heal through first. That's the reality. And once you get through that pain, once you're able to, I guess heal, not only heal through that pain, but to a certain degree, allow your, I guess heal is a very general term, but allow, I guess, to a certain degree, your soul to learn something from that experience, even if you haven't acknowledged it yet, if that makes sense. And then after you've healed to a certain degree, then you can start reflecting and looking at it from a third person perspective and saying, what is the wisdom in this for me? So there's three things we learn about. We reflect, we try things, and our experiences. And the reality is, I mean, as you get older and you have different experiences and you grow, like, you're going to be exposed to so many different things. The learning about yourself isn't, okay, well, here is, 1 hour of reflection, learn about yourself, and you figured it all out. No, it's like, it's 4,000 moments in your life of sitting down and reflecting over different experiences where it's just constant, it's non-stop. One hadith comes to mind where, and I'm pretty sure this is a weak hadith, but it's something that stuck with me for a very long time. And there's nothing wrong with following weak hadith, but there's different variants to it. But I'll just explain one or two of them, where the Prophet ﷺ says, 5 minutes, I think I could be wrong here, but 5 minutes of reflection is better than, or an hour of reflection is better than a whole night of standing up in prayer. And a different variation of that is an hour of reflection is better than, like a year's worth of praying. Like, you get the gist of it. The emphasis that he's putting on reflection. And I've thought about this for a while. I've thought about, okay, well, why, if I'm standing up all night in prayer, like, how is 5 minutes or an hour of reflection better for me? Well, the reality is, you can learn so much from it. One, as we spoke about already, but you can learn about yourself. You can learn about Allah. As Allah says in the, I'm pretty sure there's a hadith. Now I'm just throwing stuff out there. I'm pretty sure there's a hadith. The one who knows himself knows his Lord. I'm pretty sure that's a hadith. Don't quote me on it. I'm pretty sure it is. So reflecting, we gain knowledge of Allah, because as we start reflecting about ourselves, about our externals, about our world, then we can appreciate and learn about Allah more. Maybe through reflection, you're protecting yourself from something. Maybe through reflection, you identify something about your life that is so crucial to you that it changes the course of your life. Maybe you're not engaging in a certain fard activity that you're meant to be, and an hour's worth of deep reflection, and you're reflecting on your spiritual health here, let's say, for example, and you're like, okay, I've noticed why my heart is not at ease because I'm not engaging in this specific activity, let's say, whatever it is. That reflection has just changed the course of your life if you start engaging in the activity. SubhanAllah, it's powerful. Like literally the power of reflection. Wallahi. And there's so much, I guess, emphasis in the Quran for us to think, tafakkur, reflect, ponder. And inshallah, Allah will make us people that do reflect. And it's just a powerful tool, honestly. It's just, I think in one of my social media posts, I wrote that there is so much knowledge, not just about yourself, but about the world. But let's just say about yourself. There's so much knowledge about yourself that exists within you, a ridiculous amount. But you need to reflect to be able to unlock it. Think of it like this, yeah? Your heart has, let's say, thousands of compartments, so many different compartments. And the more you learn about yourself, you're unlocking different compartments in your heart, compartments of knowledge, if you will, or doors of knowledge. And the more you learn, the more you're able to dive into this abyss of different doors of knowledge that you can that teach you things about yourself, that give you an awareness of this world, of the akhirah. Remember how I said before that walking the path of, learning the knowledge of yourself can take you towards unlocking a door within your heart that allows you to begin experiencing, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, the sweetness of iman. And there's a specific way that you go about that, purification of the soul, etc., 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 tazkiyah. But it's knowledge of yourself. It's just super, super powerful. Okay, I hope you're all still with me. We're almost done, inshallah. Okay. What I'm going to do now, inshallah, is go over some questions that we can ask ourselves. And then at the end, I'm going to explain one general question that we can ask ourselves. And then we'll call it a night, inshallah. So some examples. I just wrote these on the spot. I mean, you can ask yourself anything to sort of dive into that realm of reflection, to sort of learn about yourself. But I've sort of broken them down into categories. So I've got so your emotional health and what we can ask, and I'll just dive into it actually. So if I was to assess my own emotional health, one question that I wrote down here, okay, rather than asking myself, do I have a good social network, let's say, or a good social structure? Do I have support networks? Like rather than looking at it from an external point of view, I would say to myself, what is it that I need from the people that I love? What is it that I need from my partner, from my husband, my wife, from my children, my parents, my friends? What is it that I need? That's an internal question. Something that you ask yourself and you learn about yourself with this question. And you can dive into, love languages and temperaments and that sort of thing, but you're really essentially learning about yourself with this question. What is that emotional thing that I need from the people around me? And you'll learn so much about yourself, because saying that, okay, well, I do have loving family, I do have loving friends, it's general. But what is it that you need? What is it that fulfills you from an emotional standpoint and improves your emotional well-being? Does that make sense? Some of the things might be, do I need to be heard more? Because let's go back to the fitrah. Within my fitrah, I have the need to be heard and validated. Everyone has this. But is that a major need for me? Because everyone's got different levels of everything, remember? Am I being heard enough? Am I being acknowledged enough? Is that something that I need? Am I the type of person that needs to spend more time, more physical time with people? Do I need to be more out and about? Am I an introvert? Do I need to stay more time? Do I need time to recharge? Like, these are certain things that you can ask yourself. Another question that you can ask, rather than looking external at some of the things that you've experienced, do I have self-esteem issues? This is a big one. And this might be very confronting for some of us. Do I have self-esteem issues? Are my self-esteem issues, is the reason why I'm not talking confidently, or is the reason why I'm not able to express the things that I'm thinking, or is the reason why I'm not able to try things because I might have self-esteem issues? So you look internally, you're looking within yourself. Another question, and this is the last one for emotional well-being. Am I worried what other people are thinking about me or saying about me? This is like crippling. This is like the Achilles shot for a lot of us, where we're worried about what other people are thinking about us. We never address this. We never address the fact that we might be struggling with this, and we let it control us. So if we're looking at it from a counseling or mental health perspective, taking control of, this is your thoughts. We don't know what other people are thinking about us, but my thoughts are telling me that other people are saying negative things about me, and that's crippling me. So from a mental health perspective, you're taking control of your own thoughts here, inshallah, but you're looking within yourself to identify that in the first place, if that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so I was just told at the end that we can possibly get some questions in. Okay, we can do that, inshallah. So if anyone has questions at the end, you're more than welcome to ask. This is an open platform, and I will try my best with my very limited knowledge to, I'm a genius. I'll explain it. I'll answer any question you have. No, jokes aside, if you have any questions, we can dive into that at the end, inshallah. Okay. So we've got a physical. Physical was a bit of a tough one for myself. And I guess the way I broke it down was, rather than me asking myself, because I know my body better than anybody else, obviously, yes. Rather than me asking myself, am I going to the gym enough, for example? The question that I should be asking myself is, what is it that my body needs? Does my body need more physical activity? Does my body need a specific type of sport? Swimming, soccer, archery is a sunnah sport, but no one engages that in that anymore. But inshallah, one day I'll try it out. Horse riding. Do I need a specific type of nutrient that my body is lacking? This is taking care of your physical well-being. So, and taking care of your physical, you might be thinking, yes, like, how is that? Some people might be saying, how is that important? Well, one, our body is an amana. It's a trust upon us that we have to look after. But staying healthy and staying active is something that you do to prevent disease, prevent illness. And there's many hadith about being healthy and looking after your physical health. So it's super, super important. And inshallah, we're all people that engage in physical activity. I always, something that I try to engage in as much as I possibly can, just going off on a tangent here, but something that, that feels good. Something that I try to, I guess, advise people is, if you're not doing anything, at least stretch. Mind blowing. And you might be thinking that's simple, that's nothing. Stretch. Because if you're not going to go for a walk, even though right now everyone's in self-isolation and everyone's going for a walk because they need to go outside, but I'm talking in general terms, yeah? If you're not doing anything at all, stretch. And if that means stretching for 30 seconds before you sleep, then so be it. And I kid you not, you'll see the benefits in it. Or in the future, you'll be walking with a hunchback with pain all over. I'm telling you, stretch. It's super powerful. Okay, moving on. We've got a few more to go through. We've got our spiritual. And the spiritual one was something that, because spiritual is for me, it's so personal. Yeah. For everybody, it's your connection with Allah. But some of the questions that, I guess, these are very general questions and they're quite deep, inshallah. But like, you can take them away. You can ask, like I said, the general purpose of this talk is so that we can start looking within ourselves. But some of the questions that I wrote here was, and this might sound vague, but inshallah, it's actually quite deep when I think about it. But the question is, do I feel anything, or do I hear anything that my heart is telling me? Do I feel anything that my heart is telling me, or my soul? If so, what is it that I feel? Because remember, I just mumbled there. Because remember, your heart, as we said it before, your heart is always speaking to you. Remember how I said this? If you did I say, was this the main takeaway? Yeah. If I said this was the main takeaway, this would be enough. Your heart is always speaking with you. There is an inclination towards something. This is another one. Yeah, another side example, and I'll come back to this. When you're stuck between making a decision, yeah, and you're trying to make a decision, and sometimes you do make a decision based on your inclination, and sometimes it's wrong. Allahu alam. But usually, when you're trying to make a tough decision, you already know the answer. Your gut is telling you something. Your intuition, your inclination, your heart is already telling you something. But we deliberate, we ask questions, we do istishara, we ask people, blah, blah, blah. Like we go, but deep down, we already know what the answer is a lot of the time. And even sometimes you follow that inclination that you think is right. And sometimes you still come back to the other, like Allah knows what the actual pathing is. But usually deep down, you know the answer. And this is a powerful thing to be aware of. But going back to it, do I feel anything in my heart? Is my heart telling me anything? Am I feeling unrest at the moment because of something that I'm engaging in that is influencing my spiritual health? Because we have to, when we're assessing ourselves, we look at everything. Is what I'm doing affecting my spiritual health, or is it my emotional health? Like you start assessing, self-assessment. Another question that you can ask is, am I engaging in anything? Oh, I just said this. Am I engaging in anything that hurts my soul or prevents comfort from coming into my heart? Am I doing anything that, or am I engaging in things that are making me actually content? That makes me feel like my iman is increasing, and I should do more of that. And this is all about learning about yourself, because the reality is, I'm going to say this again, there's no one size fits all. Everybody has a different capacity. And this doesn't mean some people have a better capacity or low capacity. No, it just means everyone has different capacities. And finding that frequency, finding that wavelength that works for you is super, super important. This is not like, okay, I have this much capacity, you have this much capacity. Oh, yes, bugger off, you're a weakling. No, it's got nothing to do with that. It's literally identifying, forget everyone else, identifying what it is that you need to be doing for yourself. Okay, we're almost done, inshallah. Well, I'm 45 minutes in, 40 minutes in. Okay, so we're talking about our mental health, and just a few quick questions, and then I've got one general question, and then we can go on to questions. If anybody has questions, you don't have to speak. If you don't want to, you can type it as well. If you want to type it from now, then I can just dive straight into it. So, because I know I spoke about a lot of things, maybe I didn't give enough breaks. This, like I said, I'm very new to this. It's not something I've done before. Usually I'm trying to read the crowd. So our mental health or mental well-being, and this is a very general question, actually. Ahmad, I'm going to ask myself, do I need to pay more attention to my mental health? Is this something that I actually need to pay? And you might be thinking, well, okay, well, that's just obvious, Ahmad. No, like bringing awareness to yourself is a huge thing. Is my mental health at risk at the moment? Do I need to be doing something for my mental health? It's actually, in all honesty, if we're talking about it from a mental health perspective, early intervention in mental health, early intervention can prevent so many problems. What's early intervention? Identifying that you may have an issue early on, and then doing something to resolve that. Before you have depression, you might have a symptom of depression, and you identify it and you try to do something about it. Whether that means a spiritual remedy, whether that means a physical remedy, whether that means an emotional remedy, but you're identifying it, if that makes sense. And then you can ask general questions, what are some of the things that bring me down? What are some of the things that causes me to feel sad, depressed? And then you can link this to other things as well, your other topics. Is there something that's happening in my emotional world? Is there something that's happening in my spiritual world? Is there something that's happening in my physical world, my physical health, if that makes sense? And I guess the last one is, what brings me hope? This is just a general one that I ask. What are some of the things that bring me hope? And the reason why I put that in there, and I won't dive into it too much, is because hopelessness is one of those things that is one of the most scariest things, in all honesty, in the world of mental health, in the world from a religious perspective. Hopelessness is just a very scary thing, and alhamdulillah, we get our hope from our deen a lot of the times, from our spirituality. But hope is an important topic in itself, and maybe we can talk about that separately one day, Allahu alam. But all I've got here now is one more general question. So let's say one, I guess, overarching question that you can ask yourself that allows you to dive into, I guess your own needs. And the question is, to start things off, yeah, The question is, do I feel everything is fine with me? It's a very general question, but this starts allowing you to look at every area of your life, the externals, the internals, you know, the things that you're experiencing, your emotional health, your physical health, your spiritual health. It allows you to start diving into, do I feel everything is fine with me? And you start diving into the branches of what it is, and you're doing that self-assessment again. And it's super powerful, honestly. Well, once you start figuring out how to assess yourself, you're taking the reins, you're holding the reins of the horse, if that makes sense. If you're not holding onto the reins of the horse, you can't steer the horse. And this is you, I guess, taking the first step towards holding on to the reins of the horse. And as inshallah, maybe in the future, as we start diving into more about knowledge of the self, which is a whole different topic, then that's more like, it's mastery. You're telling the horse what to do with your mind. Maybe that's not the best example, because the last time I rode a horse, I got hospitalized, and I haven't ridden a horse since. But you get my gist. You get what I'm trying to say. So, do I feel everything is fine with me? So, some of the general points that I touched on, and inshallah we can go into questions. Some of the things that we touched on is, we have, what is my internal world? It's my fitra, it's my personality, and what are the things that allows me to learn about myself? Deep reflection, trying new things, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's, in my opinion, encouraged, and the experiences that come our way, whether they are good experiences, whether they are blessings, whether they are hardship. Like I said, it could be a heartbreak, it could be losing somebody you love, and there's pain that comes with that. But after the pain, after the healing, inshallah, there is wisdom. And then there are some questions that we went over that you can start engaging in to ask yourself and learn about yourself, inshallah. So that's pretty much the gist of the talk, alhamdulillah. And I just realized I didn't even start this talk with a salawat. Wow. And it's Friday as well. That feels bad. Anyways, that's a note to myself, inshallah, for next time. So do we have any questions? Okay, what have we got here? If you could write down the questions here so we can save them for later. Yeah, write down. So you can write down the question. If you have a question, you can write them down. If they have a question, tell them to unmute themselves. I love that. Okay, so if you want to ask a question, you can ask via voice, whether it's about mental health, whether it's about this topic, learning about yourself, whether it's about self-development and growth, whether it's just about your health and well-being in general. You can ask questions, you can write them down, or you can speak. And I'll wait a couple of minutes, inshallah. If not, we're going to call it a night, because it's been 50 minutes of me talking and everyone listening, inshallah, unless you've all muted me. Okay, I want to give a couple of minutes for anyone to write questions, if you are going to. I don't know if anyone's written questions. No, I think we're good. Man, I'm kicking back. Okay, so we have a very philosophical question. What do you think of the quote, "Know thyself, know thy enemy, 1,000 battles, 1,000 victories"? You know, it's funny usually when I'm reflecting on poetry or a quote or anything that comes my way, I sort of take it back and think deeply about it before coming to a conclusion. But I'll try to give you, to a certain degree, what my immediate reaction to this is. I have a bit of a negative thought about this, because you know how there's the saying, if you're expecting something negative from somebody, expect it, because you either expect it because you know something about them, or you expect it because you have that trait within yourself. So looking at it from that perspective, it's sort of negative. Like, it's sort of looking at yourself, let me improve myself so that I am a better individual in general. But I guess looking at it from a spiritual perspective, it's talking about jihad, in my opinion, at least. And through one of the things that I talk about a lot when I'm touring people at the Islamic Museum of Australia is the concept of jihad. And imagine talking about this with non-Muslims. It's a very, very heavy topic. But I try to break it down and say, that fighting with somebody is simple. You can have a fight with somebody, yeah, a physical fight. Yeah, you forget about it, you bruise, you move on. But the fight that you have within yourself is the hardest fight that you will ever have. The hardest fight that you'll ever have. And that's the reality, and that's the true meaning of jihad. And I guess that's, even if you're talking about our topic today, knowing yourself, if you're allowing yourself to engage in questioning yourself, in reflecting, in learning about yourself, you're really walking the path of jihad, because you're allowing yourself to engage in that internal struggle. And it's a huge struggle. It really is. Like I said, it will take a toll on you. You can't do it all the time, but inshallah, you can engage in it. 1,000 battles, 1,000 victories. Subhanallah. See, I tie that in with spirituality again. You're constantly having battles with yourself, and with that comes victories, inshallah. Is it okay to hibernate during this time? Just checking for a friend. It's definitely okay to hibernate. 100%. I know that there's been a lot of sort of like expectations on people. Like, this is, I've seen so many posts. Take this time to learn about a new knowledge, or learn a new knowledge, or study something, or read a book, or that sort of thing. No, you can do whatever you're doing before. Chill, relax at home. Yes, I still suggest people to go for a walk and stay active, and take time out for important things like your family and yourself. There's a ratio that I always try to explain to people. There's 40% yourself, 40% your family, and 20% the community. And yourself comes first. So making sure that you are engaging in these things, because they are super important for you. But I think it's super, super fine to hibernate and kick back and chill and watch your Netflix and just do your own thing. And if you have spurts of motivation to be productive, then by all means dive into it. But there's, in all honesty, this comes back to, I guess, was it the emotional well-being? Am I worried about what other people are going to say about me? Am I worried that I'm not doing enough to meet the standards of what this community is expecting of me, or what people are expecting of me? And taking it one step further, remember how I was talking about the fact that we're experiencing an identity crisis nowadays? It's because we're influenced by everything. We're not able to just accept, well, this is who I am. This is who I am. Like I know when I'm productive. I know when I'm doing something. I know the projects that I'm working on. I know the activities that I engage in. Why do I need to go above and beyond and work at 180% and burn myself up because everyone is now expecting me to? It comes back down to your identity. Subhanallah. Allah razı olsun. Okay, I think whilst you reflect on yourself, it's hard to not reflect back on saying, but it was not my fault, and you go back to blaming. How can we minimize this? Whilst you reflect on yourself, it's hard not to reflect back on saying, but it was not my fault, and you go back to blaming. Okay, I'm just trying to, I'm just trying to understand the question. My apologies, Haji. I'm saying it was not my fault, but you go back to blaming. Oh, so it's not your fault, but you go back to blaming yourself. Is that what you're trying to say? It's hard. Let's go back to blaming. I think that's what you're trying to say. So you're trying. Okay. Wait, do you want to just come on and ask? Oh, you go back to blaming others. Is that correct, Amando? I hope I got the question right. So it was not my fault, but you go back to blaming others. So you said, I actually don't understand the question. Let me answer this, inshallah, and then we can call it a night. Okay, wait 1 second. He's calling me. He's calling me directly. He's saying, I'm not saying. I don't understand the question. I'm sorry. Whilst you reflect on yourself, it's hard not to reflect back in saying, but it was not my fault. And then you go back to blaming others. So it's not your fault. Sorry. So it's not your fault, but you go back to blaming others. So the issue is, okay, so you've come to terms with that it's not your fault, but your issue is that you are blaming others. Is that what you're saying? Okay. And how are you meant to come to terms with, okay, well, I said, It's never your own fault. Victim mental. Oh, I get you. Okay. I see.
Yok gözüküyor hocam.
Sorry? Oh, okay. Well, that was great. Okay. So victim mentality. So how do we, this is actually a tough one. I'll be honest with you. How do we get over the victim mentality? In all honesty, look, this could be a lot of different things. And I'm going to try and give general advice on this in all honesty. But how do I explain this? There's a saying by Umar ibn Khattab, radiallahu anh, where he says, criticize and critique yourself before you are criticized and critiqued on the day of judgment. That's what comes to mind when I read this. And if we're linking it to mental health, or we're linking it to an issue that you have within yourself, Allahu alam, just going back to that saying by him is so powerful, for me at least. Because the more we critique ourselves, the more we are able to, one, obviously learn about ourselves, because that's sort of what I was studying. That's what I was reading. I was learning about yourself, and I read that quote. But the more you critique yourself, the more you're able to come to terms with things that are going on around you. If that sort of makes sense, it sort of links back to your identity. But the more, I guess, I had a train of thought and I've just lost it. The more you're blaming other people, the more you're sort of deflecting. So I remember reading this saying a long time ago where he said, if someone was to cause an issue, I'm gonna paraphrase the hell out of it because I don't remember exactly. But if someone wants to cause an issue in your life, yeah, let's say for example, I did something wrong to you, or I said something wrong to you. It's my fault, 100% my fault. I've wronged you, whether it's something I've said or something I've done, whether it's bad, whether it's small or large. I've done something wrong. If in your position, the right approach to take, in all honesty, is to cut off the external. When I say cut off, let me just correct that. I'm not saying cut that person off. I'm saying within managing your own well-being and your own growth, you're disconnecting the external and you're focusing on yourself, the things that you can control. Because the more you're focusing on blaming the other person, the more you're allowing that from a mental health perspective to influence the way you are feeling. Does that make sense? So it's the constant self-critique. But the thing I was going to say before is I remember reading something where, or did I listen to it in a lecture where if someone says something about you or does something about you and it's wrong, or they're lying, or they've wronged you in some way, the most mature and the best approach that you can take in regards to developing yourself as an individual is to take that thing that's happened and ask yourself, did I do something wrong for that to happen? This is the approach of the Prophet ﷺ. This is how he used to teach people as well. He would never slap people in the face by like just throw the information out at people and just say, you've done this for this reason. No, he would say, what have I done wrong? And it's the same sort of concept. What have I done wrong in this scenario for this to happen? But let's say it's something, let's say someone says something negative about you and you know it's wrong. 100% you know it's wrong. But you say to yourself, what if there's truth in that? Maybe I should do something about it. And this is the path of developing yourself, if that makes sense. And it's the same thing, in all honesty. It's about disconnecting yourself from the external and focusing on the internal, the things that you can control. Because the more you focus on the external, the more it's going to influence the way you feel, and it's going to influence the way you behave, and then it's just going to make you feel like crap, if that makes sense. So it's looking at yourself and looking at the things that you can control. Because there are things that you can control, and there are things that you can't control. Does that make sense? And the things that are happening around you, like looking at before, the experiences that come your way, the financial hardship, losing a loved one, it's not heartbreak, or those sorts of things. A lot of those things are external things. You can't control them, but you can control what's here and what's here. And inshallah, that allows you to hold on to the reins of the horse, going back to that analogy. I hope that answers the question to a certain degree. So it's the difference between internal and external. Okay. Jazakallah khair everyone for listening and tuning in. Inshallah, this was beneficial for you. I think the brothers at ICMG that are managing this will be uploading this online. Allahu alam, I think they will be. It is being recorded as far as I'm aware. But I guess finally, may Allah make us of the people that are able to self-reflect and live in a constant state of introspection to understand the greater meanings of things and the wisdom behind things, and the meaning of why some of the things are happening to us as per Allah's qadr, and for us to be of people that allows us for us to be people that benefits from this knowledge, inshallah. May Allah make us of those who reflect. May Allah make us of those who benefit ourselves and others through this reflection. Amin. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Al-Fatima as-salawat. Okay, well, how do I stop this?